Wow.
Look at that.
All right, boys and girls, sorry for the delay. Some weird technical difficulties here. Kind of just like last time. I wonder if I'm getting in trouble for making some of my give us the Epstein file comments, but yeah, we just couldn't log in. Well, we're all logged in, as you can see. Welcome to CLS After Dark, episode 19. You can already see we have our guests and everything. Murph now down there. He's probably going to be the guest only so we can see him doing PT while we're talking. He's out there with his dog. But we were having some major technical issues and it wouldn't let us log in. It kept just saying, hey, there's a lot of traffic right now, so stay tuned. Try again in 60 seconds. And we kept trying and trying. But then Learn Me Something was able to do it. So it looks like we've got some people in the chat. Looks like, it says some people are watching. So, I mean, it's on my end, Learn Me Something, it says live on your side, right?
Yeah, it says live on my side. The clock's running. It looks like we've got 2 people watching.
Well, which doesn't quite make sense because we have more comments than that. But and that number never really quite tells
Now
us.
it's 3. Yeah, now it's 3. Somebody must have popped out.
Well, who knows? But anyway, here we go. So we're live. It's the 13th of March on a Thursday. It's 1800 in fake time, otherwise known as Central Daylight Time. Totally fake. But welcome to the episode. The title of tonight's episode is Reciprocity. That's going to make a little bit more sense as we get going. Let me just do just a little bit of housekeeping here at the beginning, or as the one gentleman calls it, fluff. Let me do a little bit of fluff as we get everybody catching up. What's that word?
You're fluffing?
We're going to fluff a little bit. Yeah, we got a little bit of fluff coming here. That's what one guy said. Oh, if you want to skip the fluff, and I'm like, oh, whatever. Hey, but here we go. So just real quickly, over on Cialis, the loadout lives on Centerline System. Next Monday, we got John coming on. We're going to talk about the Sherpa belt and the Y harness. Next week, so a week from now, the 20th of March, not sure what the title's going to be on, but we have a special guest coming on who's never been on before. And then we got Redbeard, and we're going to kind of talk about how to use your gear. I don't know. Just think light fighter. It'll make a little bit more sense. Then the week after that for Cialis After Dark, knock on wood, we're going to be doing another VA episode. And just stay tuned. We got a guy who just retired from the VAs coming on as a guest. Hopefully we can get Chappie back on. But I also would like to get somebody from this administration from the VA on as well. And I'll tell you a bunch of my war stories that I'm going through on a daily basis with the VA. So that's our fluff. Let's get into it. Well, again, tonight's topic is reciprocity. And like I said, it's going to make a little bit more sense. But before we jump into it, as always, let's go with Learn Me Something down to Murph. Guys, just give a little introduction. People have seen you before, but maybe they haven't. We have new viewers now. So just tell everybody a little bit about yourself, and then we'll jump into it.
Okay. I'm Learn Me Something. I'm just a regular guy who pretty much enjoys the CLS gear as well as the shows that CLS puts on as well. And I'm typically very active over in the chat as well. So, it's fun for me to actually stand in every once in a while and be part of the panel.
And does a great job, if we say so ourselves. All right, Murph, I see you. You got a big smile on your face. You're all drinking beer and playing with your puppy dog. Yeah, life's pretty good in your world. Tell everybody a little bit about who you are and how I bribed you to come on here tonight.
Bribe me. You just said, hey, man, are you busy Thursday? I think is how it went. Yeah, so Murph, Marine Corps vet, just a white-collar guy now, I guess I should say. Got a awesome daughter, and she's not here right now. She's out with my mom roller skating. So if they come cruising in, ignore them. And then my silly little dog that I'm still learning to live with. And then I'm just a gear nerd. So that led me to Mark, right? That led me to buying your stuff a long time ago. I think my first product was a G2.
I don't remember.
I think it was either that or it was the Scout Carrier.
Yeah, maybe.
And then I've been buying stuff ever since.
Yep.
And,
all right.
And beer fan.
And he's a big beer fan. I was going to say, and there's got to be a little plug there. And he's got a new Poochie in the background, so enjoy that.
And hey, if it gets annoying, hit me up and I'll mute it or something so I can throw the ball. But I'm on and off camera trying to grab the ball because she hadn't quite figured out how to bring it right to me yet. We're having this battle of the wills where she takes it close and I have to coax her into bringing it to me.
Yeah. Right on, right on. Well, here we go. I'm going to just read some little shout outs to some people here in the chat already, and then we're going to get into it. And it's going to be a good one. So I probably, if you've got questions or comments, throw them out there. But I'm just going to, and Anthony, I'm going to ask you too, because you can see the chat. Keep an eye out for something that we might want to highlight here. But
yeah, no problem.
Tonight, because it'll be a subject that you guys, hopefully you're going to want to get involved in and ask questions or make your own comment. We got Gene saying big woo to everybody, Sentinels of Liberty, and he's making a plug for his show as well, but his show is coming up this weekend, but he's saying cheers, boys. And then we have Henner Ben from Minnesota. Nice to see you, Henner Ben. Husky Bunch checking in from Minnesota. We got Quest Views, just giving Gene a big woo. Hey, good to see Quest Views over here. I always like to have Blackbeard, the first of his name. Yeah. Well, so Gene, I don't know if it was YouTube. There's something going on, and maybe it was on YouTube that it was happening. But yeah, we couldn't go live. It took that whole time just to make it happen. So, and then shameless plug from Sentinels of Liberty. Check him out. 1700 Central Daylight on Saturday. He's going to have a good guest. It's going to be a good show. I'll definitely be leaving smart ass comments. Nice to be on this side as a commenter, as a person trying to do it all. And then we got Gene giving Murph and his awesome doggo a little shout out. All right, we're going to jump right into it right there. All right, so the title is Reciprocity. And that's really a big question, right? And if you saw in the kind of information block for this tonight's live stream, I posed a series of questions. And that's where we're going to kind of start. And I think I'm going to, if you read those questions, it's basically like, hey, who are we anymore as a people? What has really been going on the last 16, 20 years? Or just take the current, all the way from current events through the last administration, through Trump's first administration, and through Obama before him for two tours. You take a look, what's been going on? What's been going on with our media? What's been going on with our politics? What's been going on in the world? How are we treating each other as humans? Are we becoming closer together? Or are we being separated and everything is more delineated? It's an us versus them. Rules for me, rules for thee, but not for me type of scenario. Well, so the way this started, DB, David, good friend of mine, we were having this conversation a long time ago. And his point was, and DB, if you're there, chime in. He ain't got a dog. He's got 3 kids, all of them in sports. So he's busy as,
He's the one you said likes DST, right?
What's that?
Like he actually likes the time change. Is that the one?
Oh, because of sports. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah. That's DB. But DB's point to me a long time ago is like, if people just would have played more the middle of the road, like let's all get along, we wouldn't have found ourselves in this situation. Like, in other words, what did you think was going to happen when, and look, you can argue against me. And if you do, leave a comment, come on, prove your point. Right. But his thing is like, we've just experienced this, basically all the way back from Obama. We've been living in a society where it's becoming more polarized, where if you don't do what I want you to do, if you disagree with me, well, then you're a Nazi. You're somebody did it once, you're a phobophobic, transphobic, all these phobic isms mixed in one, like big word salad, Kamala Harris sentence. And it was pretty funny. And his point was, if you were, if your side of the political aisle or your side of the societal aisle is treating everybody that way, well, what do you think was going to happen when the pendulum of power swings and now your enemies are in charge? And that's going to be my segue into the guys here. Do we adopt the, religious belief or perspective of do unto others as we would have them do unto us? I think right now there'd be a bunch of people saying, well, that's what we've been doing. If you want to say the conservative movement, that's kind of what we've been doing. I just want, I don't care what you do in your bedroom. Just leave me out of it. Or, no, the rules apply to everybody. We just spent, the last year and a half hearing that no one's above the law. Yet now I look around and it sure as hell seems like there's a lot of people who think they're above the law. And there's a lot of people who think we shouldn't punish those who've committed crimes simply because they're on our political side of the aisle. I disagree with that. So that begs the final question, and I'll turn to the guys. Or do we adopt a more religious kind of perspective of an eye for an eye? The pendulum is swung. You have done, and we'll get into this in a little bit more detail. I'm going to use 4 kind of pillars, and there's all kinds of subcontext and conversations within each one. But if you just take a look back, or if you yourself were subjected to this, or if you witnessed it, or if you did it, I'll use the BS. Everybody, like, oh, mask this and that, and if you don't do it, you've got to be fired. And we love the fact that people are being fired from their federal jobs because they're not getting the shot. Well, okay, but now that, and again, and if you don't believe the science, well, no, that's what science is. Science isn't set and never is, right? We should never believe the science. We should always be challenging it and making sure it works. And we're seeing that it was bullshit. And I'm on the record way back in the day. I knew it was bullshit the moment we knew the size of the particulate. Like, mask wasn't going to do anything, and social distancing. And now here we are. But we're working in an environment in which, the media has been so on board with this stuff for whatever reasons. And even now that information is still being suppressed, censored, and, because I even said Corona, this video probably gets censored. So on that note, and I guess maybe the place to start it off, and then we'll get into some of the specific pillars, I'll turn it over to Learn Me Something, and we'll come down to the Murph, the dog whisperer. And, what are your guys' thoughts? I mean, is it eye for an eye, or is it do unto others as you would have them do unto you? Or maybe no such discussion needs to have because everything is hunky-dory right now?
Well, it really is, it boils down to a mixture, right? We want to govern ourselves in such a manner where we try to find common ground with people as much as possible. We also want to be respectful of others and do unto them as we would want them to do to us. However, there comes a time when somebody truly wrongs you or does something that they need to be held accountable. So where they cross that line, and there have been many instances going back, even during, let's just go as far back as maybe like the Obama administration and look at some of the things that they did there, whereby, they utilized the nuclear option when they were trying to pass certain laws and certain bills and things like that. They did away with the filibuster rule. They took away the voice of the minority parties, well, essentially the one minority party, because we, don't really have too many other parties that are in Congress and things like that. But they took away that voice. They took away the ability for people to voice their displeasure and to debate the issues and say, hey, you know what? This is why we disagree with what it is that you're putting forth. And they really just steamrolled a whole host of laws, and they got that ball rolling to the point where we are so divided, not only politically, but then through certain other mechanisms that they put in, they started to divide us up on religion and race, and making people think that other people dislike them for whatever nonsensical reason. And that was never the case. That was the fiction that was pushed. That was the prism through which they wanted us to see things. That was how they made the media manipulate us and believe things that were not true. Because at the end of the day, if we go outside and we interact with everyday people, are we really having these crazy disagreements where we're at each other's throats? Absolutely not. For the most part, that is not occurring. People get along with each other just fine, regardless of what their differences are. But they've gotten people so ginned up based upon media, movies, and all of these different things to make them believe this false sense of reality, to where they are extremely hostile toward other people and just jump to a conclusion that other person thinks less of them because they are different than them. So I guess that's where I would leave it for now and give Murph an opportunity to chime in.
Yeah, I was enjoying listening to your points, because I was like, I don't watch the news as much. I don't take in as much, other than, like when I get on my browser and you see the top headlines that they want you to see, or they're trying to rope you into their algorithm. And I purposely turn off like my YouTube search history and things, because I don't want it to feed me certain things. I want to see what's out there. And it's funny to me. You said something about how out in public we don't see that dissent, at least not where I'm at. And I don't. It sounds like probably not where you guys are at. And Mark, I know where you're at. You probably don't see it as much. Being kind of up there, isolated in the frozen north still. But I see it just online. Like I haven't done any like this year, but like Go Ruck events and things, and rucking events and veterans events. Obviously, veterans are going to be a little bit more of a I don't want to say an echo chamber, but there is a little bit more of a, you can kind of tell what the crowd's going to be. But anytime I've done anything where you're suffering together, or you're in a group of people that maybe, like I said, Go Ruck events or a trail run or something, nobody's talking politics. Like, you just don't see it until you go online later and maybe somebody posts pictures in that community or something like that. And then that's when people start turning into the keyboard warriors and start dropping their political beliefs and things. And then all of a sudden you got, the back and forth. I don't see it in my day to day. And even in an office environment, I don't see it. You might hear some whispers of it or something. And my daughter will come back from school, middle school, and she'll tell me something, like, hey, this one kid thinks this. And I'm like, hey, where are you getting that idea? Like, where do you, so I don't see it in the day to day, like a face to face. You're not getting that dissent. But online, absolutely, man. It's all over the place. I mean, good Lord, everybody has their own thing. Like, everybody wants to bash Joe Rogan. If you go on Reddit and look up the Joe Rogan forum, hate all day long for Joe Rogan. You go onto his YouTube, love for Joe Rogan. Instagram, love for Joe Rogan. It's just certain areas have their channels that they want to bitch in. That's where I get it. That's where I see it.
Well, I was going to bring up, social media, not mainstream media, not news outlets, but social media. That was going to be one of the areas in which, it's a fair conversation. It's adult table conversation. Sure. And you just mentioned Reddit. Reddit has now become notorious for being an echo chamber of crazy leftists, who are actually espousing violence. And we're going to get into that because social media, politics, mainstream media, if you just look at it, there are lots and lots of people calling for violence. Now, not everybody, because, again, everybody's trying to be smart and well, I'm just going to say this and I'm going to stop just short of the line of doing it. But we all know what it is that they're doing and espousing. And there are people who have openly espoused it. There's probably not enough law enforcement officers to go and investigate everything. But, when you come to that, though, Murph, there are some channels that do a great job of exposing and trying to expose that and bring it to light. And those channels have been attacked. They've been doxxed. They've been swatted, because evil, what is that? And it's just so funny. I can't remember who it is, if it's the New York Times or somebody saying something like, truth dies in the darkness. No, you guys got it all backwards. You know what you're doing. You're trying to say we got to keep this stuff in the dark. I can't remember or how to really phrase that, but it's the exact opposite. No, truth strives and flourishes in the light. We need to be, free speech. People should be able to say, again, unless you're actually inciting violence or, again, there are categories, but there is no such thing as hate speech. All speech is potentially hate speech. All it takes is one other person not to like that we're having this conversation. And then if we allow that person to be in charge, this is now deemed hate speech. So censorship, Reddit, that stuff is very real. And we might as well just start off right there. So what do we do? What's the reciprocity? Unless you, the viewer, unless you don't think that the media has been skewed. I just keep thinking of Leslie Stahl. Sir, we're 60 minutes. No, you're not even a reporter. The Hunter Biden laptop, that should be something that America wears an armband. American media wears a armband of shame for at least a year. You guys knew all that was real. You didn't want to look into it. Well, we're reporters. Then do some investigative journalism. It's got, the receipt has his name on it. There's the computer. Well, we've got these 40-some people who said, former officials. They didn't say it was Russian propaganda. And by the way, and that's been totally debunked. What's his face he was deputy director. Oh, why is his name forgetting me? Actually know some stories on that dude, but Mike Morale. And he came out and he's admitted, he's like, no, that we wanted to get the messaging out to help the Biden campaign. Where's the retraction from the media guys? So what do we do? What's the reciprocity? Is it an eye for an eye or do unto others? Because does anyone think this is going to get better in our world? YouTube is still YouTube. Google's still, Google and YouTube, same thing. The robot, Android from, over on Facebook and shit, he can Zuckerberg, he can say what he wants, but like, is he really meaning that? Or is he just know that the pendulum, as David said, DB, the pendulum has swung and now he's stands to be in really big trouble for going along with the actions that he should have known that were morally wrong, if not straight up illegal, because it was straight up illegal. So guys, what do we do? Media.
Well, I look at it this way. When one party decides that they're going to change rules and it's going to benefit them all along the way, and they're going to do things that essentially put a minority party and almost makes them obsolete, stifles their voice, stifles their ability to communicate, politically prosecute certain people. I think that when the pendulum does swing, that the other party needs to hold the first party accountable and actually maintain those same rule sets, because that's the only way that the other side will learn that what they did was wrong. When they start to feel that pressure, when they start to feel that persecution, when they start to feel, and I'm not saying do it the same way, you could do it differently, right? Because when certain people are dirty and what they've been doing is dirty. If you're going after them because they've broken a law, that's a completely different thing. But go like I said earlier, what was done to the Tea Party, where the IRS was weaponized against them because they were speaking ill of the established order. They were discussing what changes were occurring in the country that they were not happy about, and the established powers did not like that. So what did they do? They went after them. They made sure that they put them through litigation. They made sure that they bankrupted people. It's a sick game that they played. However, when the pendulum swung the other way and they had an opportunity to go after people that we know are dirty, that we know are stealing money, that we know are either cheating on taxes or that are making all sorts of very interesting stock trades and that are making millions upon millions in just stock trades, those people are dirty. The American people know that they're dirty. The vast majority of humanity knows that they're dirty, but nobody ever goes after them. And it's funny because, there's a few reasons that I guess you could say that the rhinos never really go after them. And it's because, firstly, they could be gutless. Secondly, they could be trying to be holier than thou and, let's take the high road type of a thing. They could be complicit in that they are doing the same things, that they're part of that uniparty. They could be on the take in a different way. Maybe they're being bribed by certain people to just not look into certain things. And the other thing the other component to that is, well, are they compromised? Is there something that they have, some kind of skeleton that they've got in their closet that somebody is now weaponizing against them? Or is that person compromised in a different way where they've got too much exposure? Somebody's got leverage on a child of theirs, or has leverage on another loved one of theirs that maybe has, I don't know, an addiction problem or whatever else, like that they can use against that person. And I would say yes to all of those things, because I think that's why we run into the problems that we do when, the more conservative-minded people are in power. They never do anything. They never do anything of merit. They never do anything that holds the other side accountable. anything that would make the populace actually stand up and cheer and say, finally, we're getting justice. We don't get that. We get little things like, we're gonna pass on this whole pipe bomber thing over to Jim Jordan. Oh boy, like I really don't care at this point. Like there are so many other things that they could have been working on. They could have gotten that Epstein list. They could have gotten, all the other files on JFK, RFK, on Martin Luther King. I mean, these things were supposed to have been done, and yet nothing. Nothing on investigating people in how they perpetrated a fraud on January 6th and put these poor guys and gals in prison for an extended period of time for no reason.
Well, no, there was a reason.
The vast majority of them didn't do anything legitimate to land them there.
Well, but hang on, don't go past it though. It was done intentionally and for a reason. I'm not disagreeing with you that the vast majority of these people, I mean, but the evidence has been destroyed. The video was never presented. Here's people, just getting out of jail who spent, 2 or more years in jail. That's not due process. The process was the punishment, right? And it was so we could build a political narrative that made it seem like these guys over here who represent this are evil, and it gave the left, in my humble opinion, it gave them the ability to say, well, we're all about law and order. And this was the greatest attack on freedom and democracy, because they want to get that democracy, even though we're a constitutional republic, but putting that aside, no, it was done intentionally.
Yeah. They wanted to use them as political pawns.
Yep. And where's the reciprocity? You're dealing with people so evil, they knowingly use the system against individuals supporting the other political party. We still have people talking about, cops were killed. And no, the only person who was killed was a protester. Now you could argue, and was there some stupid stuff and should that have gone down a lot differently? Yeah. But let's also find out then, if we're going to make that, I can make that concession, but then we need to, from Learn Me Something's point, then we need to have the truth. How many feds were in the crowd, and were they agitating and working up the crowd intentionally to create this result? That's got to be in there too. If we're going to be a true and honest and a constitutional republic, the land of the free because of the home of the brave, well, then we need to have that, no matter what the cost is. And by cost, I mean the pain. Oh, we're going to expose all these people in political power are, then if they're corrupt, they're corrupt. And then they need to be, either, and if they're corrupt to the point where it's legal proceedings, then legal proceedings. And if it's just a, total lack of morality, well, then, within our Constitution, there's got to be the ability for an immediate recall, or for, or just vote their asses out of office. And then whatever time they have left, they don't get any support, any funding, whatever, something that nature. Murph, I want to bring it back to you though. I mean, what are your thoughts on kind of where we were going? Anthony took us.
Well, just to clarify, you're talking about January 6th, right? The crowd, and is that what it was?
Well, we kind of focus on that, but but he brought up a whole bunch of different issues. Again, the whole thing really was, reciprocity, but you can do the January 6th if you want to.
Well, no, I was just asking because you were talking about the people in the crowd and things, and man, I don't know. I always like to. I don't like to do the knee jerk thing. And I think that's what people are doing with, I keep hearing Trump's first 100 days in office. I'm like, well, he hadn't really been in office 100 days, right? Like as far
53.
As acting, is that, yeah. So as far as acting, it's not 100. He was elected maybe 100 days ago, right? Something like that, like officially. But I always hear that. And I'm like, man, I like to sit back, and when you throw a pebble in the water, you're waiting for the ripples to chill or the sediment or whatever to clear out. And I feel like that's a lot of things. Like I can't judge this administration on anything that's going on, because we don't know how it's going to shake out long term. We don't even know how it's going to shake out in the next couple months. We just know that people are pissed off on that side. And that's the thing that I'm like, if the left is pissed off because of what Trump's doing, then they should understand why the right is pissed off about what was done before, because we can actually look back at that and say that was jacked up on certain levels, on a lot of levels. But this here, you're sitting at ground zero watching stuff happen, trying to judge it. Like you can't ever do that, even in an accident. Like if you're ever the first responder in a car accident or something like that, you don't go, this is exactly what happened. Well, you don't know what happened. until you go back later and survey the scene. Like, chill out a little bit. I think too many people are jumping to conclusions about, we're chopping this department and we're doing that, and this is going to do this and this is going to do that. It's like fear mongering on a lot of levels. Man, I don't know. Like I said, I'm not an avid news watcher, so I feel like I'm fighting an uphill battle on some of this. I don't know. You guys are throwing out stuff, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't even know who you're talking about. Are these celebrities? What are we doing? But like, like I hear like Dan Crenshaw's name gets thrown around right now a lot, and I'm just like, man, this guy, he stepped in a pile of shit, and he's having a hard time walking it dry. Like this dude is just. He, from what I've seen, he seems like one of these rhinos, right? That everybody talks about. I think he's kind of I keep hearing this term, this grifter, and he seems like he's maybe that guy. Oh, yeah. But I don't know. I've never met the man. I've never had a beer with this guy. I don't know, but that's what I hear. And I'm like, man, it does kind of seem that way from all the evidence that's been thrown out there. And he's been around for a bit. It's not like he's new on the scene. He's not newly elected. He's been around for a while. And I'm not trying to throw this dude under the bus or get on his radar, but I'm just like, that to me is kind of my experience with it. I'm like, I kind of see that I don't know why I brought him up. There was something that you guys said that kind of related to it. And I'm like, man, I keep seeing this dude lately that I'm like, but you're probably not in a good light right now.
But I think that's okay. And that goes into reciprocity. And the rest of the application here would be the people of the state need to vote him out of office. Because, he's been all over it since day one. I mean, it all started back in the day with the comments he's made about the Second Amendment and,
the red flag stuff. I do know that. Yeah.
Red flag. Exactly. But more recently, this was just like a month, 2 months ago, he's on film in an interview and he himself says that, well, of course, us poor politicians who only make like 160 a year, we haven't even had, a cost of living COLA from if anybody in the military, cost of living adjustment, or I guess that's government, everybody in the government. He goes, but we haven't even had a COLA in years. How else are we supposed to get ahead? Like he just came out and said, yeah, I'm a politician. 160, whatever I get paid isn't enough for me to represent my constituents. So therefore I have to use my position for my personal benefit to get rich for aggrandizement. So, because that's what I do. And matter of fact, and in all fairness to him, it was Joe Biden years ago who was making the same statement. He was like, I'm one of the poorest senators out there, like I'm not doing what everybody else is doing. He came out and said it. He's like, I need to be. And then, and he must have took it to heart because 10% for the big guy. So, so that's it. So accountability, reciprocity. Hey, well, look how long now we're kind of going down a little bit of a rabbit hole. And Murph, if you know this one, you do. I think Learn Me Something will get it, but Menendez, how long did it? Oh my God, the guy, the bars of gold in his house, all the shady shit he was doing under the table, and it took forever to get that guy any type of conviction, right? So,
I feel like a lot of that's going to shake out, right? I hope all this eventually, and that's what I always worry about. Like you always hear people like when Carter died, right? Like you hear, oh, he was this great president. But people were like, man, this guy sucked before he died. I mean, you had like some hardcore supporters that were like, this guy's awesome. But then when he died, they're like, oh, this guy was so great. I'm like, I guess nobody wants to speak ill of the dead. I mean, I'm sure somebody spoke up in favor of Hitler when he died. And I'm not saying they're the same, but I'm saying like there's always that kind of like just talking good about somebody after they're gone. But you still see the stuff they did later. You're like, these guys are jacked up. Like all of it comes out in the wash. And I think right now, a lot of people are getting washed out. They're getting kind of found.
Well, I hope so. I hope so. And that has to be part of the reciprocity portion of it, in my opinion. Yeah. There's another senator who from somewhere out east. I can't remember. I should have had the article, but she just said she's not going to run for re-election. And now it's coming out, why she's not doing it because of all the graft and corruption. And, she was doing on a committee and her husband, look, don't anyone sue me here. I'm just, it's something along these lines. I'm probably wrong in a lot of areas. So, just take it with a grain of salt, but it goes to what Murph just said. Her husband, just like Nancy Pelosi and just like, Schumer and Graham and all of these guys and, and Eye Patch, they're all using their positions in politics to further their personal gain and power and wealth. Well, that's not what they're supposed to be there for. But yet we, as a society, somehow, to your point, Murph, it's either we don't want to disrespect our elected officials, or we don't want to disrespect the dead. But then why are we keep voting these people in? Why are we allowing it? Are we a society that turns the other cheek to somebody who is clearly violating the laws? I mean, is that what we've become? Like, we don't even care about our elected officials breaking the laws they are supposed to uphold and support and defend, right? We don't seem to give a shit. So that would lead us to believe that there is a two-tiered system of justice. Well, I mean, how long can a society, exist when, if you're an elected official or a government employee, the rules don't apply to you? But for the rest of us knuckleheads, we get thrown in jail for just having this conversation. And boys and girls, don't forget, that is what a lot of people have been pushing very hard for the last 4+ years. That if you say certain things, if you speak about certain topics, have a certain opinion, you need to get fired, lose your job, be put in a concentration camp. Look, I hope you guys were doing your own research and, paying attention, but people have been saying this for years, and they're still saying it right now today. But to Murph's point, well, or maybe to DB's point, the pendulum has swung in the other direction. Okay, now what are we going to do? Because if we knee-jerk react and overreact, well, that's not cool either. I'm a big believer in freedom in the Constitution. Kind of bringing it, I'm going to bring my closing statement, bringing it back to Learn Me Something, because he kind of said this. Hey, if you've broke the laws apply to everybody. I thought we just heard, no one's above the law. I just heard that for the last year, Well, okay, well then what about all these people who've been breaking the law and stealing your money and embezzling it and laundering it back to their own party or to their own, to themselves? What about that? That's a crime. Shouldn't we be investigating that? And then if people have found to be guilty, they get their day in court, just like every other American citizen does. They get their day in court. And if they can defend themselves and prove themselves, because again, they're innocent until proven guilty. But, if this evidence is there to mount a case against them, well, then isn't that what we should be doing? Because I thought no one was above the law. Anthony?
Well, don't forget, you got the court of public opinion too right now that reigns supreme. I mean, all it takes is enough people to get on Instagram or something and rally forth for somebody, and we'll get jury decisions reversed. We'll get all kind of things. We'll get extra time added to their trial. I mean, that stuff happens all the time. And I think, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I realized what I was thinking earlier with the Crenshaw thing is, man, you hear a lot of people that get rich on the stock market, insider trading and stuff, and it works on both sides of the aisle.
Yep.
I see it on both sides. And I think right now, one of the greatest things that they could do is shut down insider trading. I would like to see term limits. I really would. But then I would like to see them say, hey, look, if we're going to do this insider trading, we're not going after Pelosi, because I mean, we are, but I'm not saying we're going after her as the poster child, but there's bigger fish to fry. Hit all of them and make it known on all news media outlets. You're doing it to everybody. Because, Fox News is going to report just the left getting hit, and all the other news outlets that aren't Fox News are going to hit just the right getting hit, and they're all going to light them up. But I want to see like equal accountability on all sides. Like, I want to see people being held to the fire.
That's reciprocity, equal application of justice. And
it's the law. It shouldn't apply to one side over the other either way.
Anthony?
Yeah, I just wanted to get back to a point that you had before about how the populace does not like to vote out a lot of these people, and I think the problem is that our elected officials and the media have done a great job of making us believe that this is a team sport. Everything's winner take all. Everything's got to be, oh, you have to vote for this person because this person is the devil and this person is going to destroy your way of life. Well, guess what? Sometimes there are things that are a lot more nuanced. If my only two choices I despise, maybe there's a third party candidate that I am more amenable to wanting to vote for because that person is more in line with my views, even though we may have our differences. That person may be more of a stand-up human being that I would want to represent me. So the problem is that we constantly, through social media, through legacy media, we get spoon-fed all this stuff where we think, we think of it as though it's sports and it's a team sport, and we only need our team to win, and we don't care how they win or why they win. But that's not what it needs to be about, and I don't think if people do some soul searching that's truly what they want either. What they truly want is to have respectable people representing them in Congress or representing them in the presidency and doing things that are on the up and up and holding themselves to the same account that they would hold us. That they don't see themselves as our rulers or our kings, but they see themselves as representatives of us, people that actually work for a living, that have to pay bills, that have to put food on the table. That's what they should be. But instead, we've created this permanent political class where these people think that they're above us all and that they can do whatever they want to whomever they want, whenever they want, and they will always get away with it.
Just real quickly,
real
quickly, but it's not just a political class. I think it's a government class. And we see
Mm-hmm.
this right now with government employees having an issue with doing an email to their boss explaining what they did this week. Welcome to the real world, government employees. Look, I worked for the government, both the military and the agency. I had to do that shit all the time, right? You had to justify your actions and, your operations and you had to do your performance evaluations. In the civilian world, your boss is critiquing you every fucking day. I got to stop. I got to try to not swear. Apparently that is one of the things that might be hurting the algorithm, but
I wondered about that. I was going to say something earlier, and I'm glad I stopped myself.
Yeah, well, but so okay, YouTube, give me that one. That was my only F-bomb. But no, so Anthony, to your point, I don't think it's just the political class. I mean, look, you can take this everywhere from school board members, your local police department, your county and city officials, state officials. I mean, look at Tim Walz. He's the governor of my state. That guy doesn't think I have a voice or a say in everything. They changed our state flag. There was no referendum. They did a little here's an online thing, submit your designs, and we're just going to decide on picking a new what? Where did that come up? Because Tim Walz and other like-minded cronies, those government people, they are in charge according to them. And you see it right now with everything Doge is doing. It's like, oh, you can't come after us. We're above the law. Those rules apply to Mark, and all those other idiots out there, not us. We're government employees. Hey, you know what? I was a government employee for over 30 years of my life, so I don't want to hear that shit. So, I've kind of been there, so I know what that's all about too. So, all right, let's bring it back to that's a pretty good, that little thrower is pretty damn good though. You got to have one of those. Yamapuchi.
Dude, this thing's badass. I'm not sponsored, but it's awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
I wish I had one for grenades, man.
Well, I think you should fashion them. Hey, this is America. There's somebody out there right now saying, oh, I could Kydex press it and I could do it,
Well, I mean, as it was in combat, not now. I don't want to incite any riots. I'm just saying when I was still doing combat stuff, this would have been awesome for what is it, M67 fragmentation grenade? Yeah, this would have been great.
All right. Give us your thoughts on just that whole thing. Or Anthony, I kind of interrupted you, but you want to finish that, or was that kind of it? Again,
to your point, I think a title and a little bit of scratch gives anybody pretty much that has that's a very small person, gives them a God complex. It makes them think that they're better than others, whether it's in politics or in your everyday office, wherever you work. There's always somebody that has a title and makes a little bit more money that thinks that they're better than everyone.
Yeah. Well, and that just gets exacerbated when you're in a position, government, where it's next to impossible to get fired. That's the other thing that we got people freaking out is because, why did so many people take the early out? If you believed in it, if you really wanted it, why did you take the early out? Why did you take I don't have to work for the next 6 months and I'll get whatever, the buyout money is, so I've got the rest of my year's salary and the rest of the year to find another job. I mean, that tells you everything right there. It tells you how many people really know the grift. And I got to give those people prop from a reciprocal kind of position. They're at least admitting, this was a grift. I'm going to get busted. You're going to fire him anyway. You guys are stupid enough to give me a buyout. I'm going to take it and go, because because I haven't been doing anything and I haven't been at work for months. I'm dealing, again, come to the VA episode. I'll just say it right now. I'm dealing with that right now. Good luck. And maybe it's a regional thing and maybe I'm the outlier, but there has to be reciprocity here. Like, you can't just keep working from home and then just blowing things off. And then every time, a complaint comes in, you blame the veteran. I just had that happen to me. Oh, well, you didn't show up. I'm like, the hell, I didn't show up. I was sitting here in this type of, video software waiting for you for 30 minutes. No, that was an in-person meeting. Oh, so I just hacked into your system, created the meeting, sent myself the link, then logged in and sat here on the computer just to prove a point because I didn't want to show up for the in-person meeting. Is that what you're telling me? And no one knows, and they don't care. There is no resolution. Because there's no, back to this reciprocity. No one's going to eye for eye or hold them accountable. And I think that's where we see a lot of the fear coming in right now, especially on the government side. Murph?
It's funny you said that about the early outs. I immediately went to, that's akin to like early pardons, isn't it? Like if you're not guilty of anything, why do you need a pardon?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what's with the blanket stuff and what's with the getting out of Dodge while you can? I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of people right that are for instant money. So I can't begrudge somebody that if they say, hey,
sorry, I got to do this. And if you're going to issue a pardon, that should be written in by hand by a human being, not the auto pen. And see, will we find out the truth of that? How many of those pardons we're hearing about it that apparently he wasn't there doing it, and people were doing it with an auto pen. So who was really running the country? This is the kind of stuff that should be just really causing people, no matter what side of the aisle you're on. I'd feel the same way if this is what was happening in the end of Reagan's presidency or FDR's presidency or whomever it is. That's something we should be concerned about. Who's running the damn country?
Well, I mean, that's a question that we want answered. I mean, I think, but it's like nobody's and I mean, maybe it's the 24/7 media cycle. Maybe it's these little crazy rectangles that we have mounted up right now and all this stuff. But there's so much information coming in. Most people have such a short attention span. There's always something new. There's always so much crap coming down the pipe, and you can't even focus on the last turd you've seen because there's more shit coming your way. It's just like, where do you like stop and say, hey, we're going to stop the world for this because that was important at the time, and now it seems like it's not because there's a bigger pile of shit right here. It's like there's always something that just keeps taking our attention away.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. I'm going to read a couple comments. There were some people made some good points, and I just want to give them a little presence. And then we're going to come back and just keep moving in this direction. But I kind of want to, I'll leave it up to you guys if we go on to media, social media, or if we go back into the government side about it, or if we bring it all the way back to us as human beings. I kind of want to end it on us as the humans, right? Because that's where it really matters. But here's Redbeard with his Sentinels of Liberty. That's going to be his new show. But his comment was pretty good. I mean, this is going back to the beginning. Take care with the laws you make today, for they may be used against you tomorrow. Point being, if we allow the liberty to be stripped from those we don't like or oppose, if we do that today, it will come back around and bite you in the ass tomorrow. And I think that's what DB, and then Redbeard continues, and it'll be utilized to strip the liberty from you as well. And, just Mark's tinfoil hat, I think that's the whole point. It doesn't matter Democrat or Republican. It's about control. And it's about people in power and those of us who are the serfs and who are going to do what we're told, live in our little shacks, eat the bugs, and live in your 15-minute cities. I think we'd be in a completely different world right now had they been successful in assassinating Trump. But we'll get to that here in a little bit. Gene is saying the hate for anyone that is not a left lover or Black Lives Matter follower, and you just called it right. And you just call the far right bigot, the N-word, and want everyone battered into submission. I kind of remember that point of the conversation. And then he goes on to say, like, for example, if you live in the United Kingdom and if you want to rally in support of your country and your heritage and what you stand for, and you go to a rally, and I've seen the videos of this too, he's absolutely right. And then Antifa shows up. What do the law enforcement people do? They arrest the people who want to protest in favor of their country. Look, when we were just talking about it's government, when Anthony was talking about this, and I was saying it's not just politicians, it's the government class. Well, what are police officers? government class. And I'm not throwing all police officers under the bus. I don't mean it any that way. I've had police officers on before. I have some friends who are police officers, that kind of stupid statement. But there are a lot of cops out there. And, and if you just follow the trend and look at, to Murph's point, I think he and I were talking about it a couple of days ago, there's bad apples everywhere. But if you start, there's some gotcha things, and a lot of the auditors out there, you could construe that as kind of gotcha moments. But it's a gotcha moment about the rule of law and our Constitution. I just saw one the other day where it's like total overreaction by law enforcement, and it's always an excuse. Well, no, it doesn't matter what happened over somewhere in another part of the country or in another part of the world. You have no reason. Why is that guy still pointing his gun at me with his finger on the trigger? And then some cop, there's the sergeant's there and he's telling everybody to calm down. And, because he realizes immediately, like this is bullshit and this guy has a right to do it. But there's still one wannabe tough guy cop. And he's like, the guy's like, give me your name and your badge number. The guy's like, none, you don't need it, bud. And he's got his hand on the gun. He's just all flexing and posturing. Like that guy feels like he's above the law, and his job is to go out there and not to support the Constitution and support his community. He's just there because he wants to be kicking indoors and beating people up and arresting, because that's the tough guy, cool guy thing to do. There's got to be accountability for that person in that department, and it can't be at the on the back of the taxpayers. So that's reciprocity. If that guy is going to use his badge or uniform or position, again, and it doesn't have to be law enforcement, it could be any other thing. That's what we're seeing right now. And if they want to use that color of the law for their own personal gain or to control the populace, well, then are we at the point where there needs to be an accountability for that, or some reciprocity? Do we need to have some laws change, some attitudes in our society? Like, hey, you can't do that to people. And when you do that, guess what? Yeah, I get it. You got a tough job. Well, then you volunteered. No one forced you into any of those jobs. Same with me, my whole career. No one forced me to do that. I voluntarily pursued those careers, and they could have resulted in my death. I had colleagues in the agency who were being brought up on war crimes, and you had to get personal liability insurance. I mean, like, that's a pretty messed up place to be working. Hey, we want you to go out and, try to kill bin Laden. But if something goes wrong because it's war, well, you might find yourself, being brought up on war crimes. You better have a lawyer ahead of time. So that's just kind of where we've been led to, I think. So we as a people, we got to figure it out, boys and girls. What are we going to do? How are we going to approach it? How are we going to deal with it going forward? Or does any of this matter? And it's really about baseball season and football and circuses. Murph?
Yeah, I think that's a big thing on a lot of levels, right? Like I said, that news cycle moves too fast, and everybody's just focused on the next big thing. But that is kind of what this whole thing feels like, as a giant football game. But the problem is, what is at stake is our liberty, our freedom, our rights. Because you hear like, oh, my side won, haha, eat shit. And then it's like both sides do that back and forth. And it's like, well, the problem is we're all kind of losing if we're not holding ourselves to the same damn standard. If we're not holding everybody to the fire equally, then we're all losing, because you're making it too one-sided either way. No matter who wins, it's eventually one side wins too many times, and then they're in power. Doesn't matter who it is. It shouldn't be that way.
Well, and then, I can't remember if it was you or if it was Anthony brought up, talking about, I think Murph, it was you, talking about, we were talking about the legal side of it, getting away with the filibuster, and you had all this talk about, because we lost an election and we didn't get to nominate who goes to the Supreme Court. Now we're talking about there should be more Supreme Court justices, trying to stack it and to game the system. And that right there. So on a reciprocity, kind of to your point, on all levels of society, we all know it's bullshit. We all see what's going on. And what saddens me is that the individuals promoting it don't have any moral, like where's your moral compass? Like, can't you look, do you not see how that looks in the mirror? It looks like a petulant child who doesn't like losing, doesn't like it when the rules apply to them, who then therefore, as Anthony said, then when they're in power, they just change the rules around. And that's not going to get us anywhere. Anthony?
Yeah. That's why I'm always a huge advocate for, well, You guys instituted those rules the last time we were in session. You're no longer in power, but guess what? We're going to retain the rules that you wanted to play the game by, that you wanted to govern by. So now you're going to have to deal with the consequences of that. Now we get to push whatever we want without you being a hindrance. And it's not so much for us to gain the upper hand. It's more about the discipline component of showing them what it's like so that they understand not to do that in the future. So to me, that's really what it's about. It's not so much about like spiking the football and going crazy and being like, we're just going to screw a person over. It's more about trying to make sure that you hold them accountable, that they understand the pain of having to go through something so idiotic. And then so that they realize going forward, maybe we should be playing by rules that are fair to everyone versus stacking the deck one way or another. So that's kind of where I would like to see things. Of course, will we get there? Who knows? But that's something that we should always strive for.
Murph, do you want to add to that?
I cut out for a little bit. My audio is jacked up, and that's why it dropped out of my headset. I didn't quite
your
catch
sound
all
is really good. Your sound is really good on this side.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's all that matters. But one thing, and I'm sorry, Anthony, I didn't hear what you said.
That's all right.
But when you said something, we were talking earlier about the holding people accountable in government, saying, "Hey, what did you do this week?" Right? Like I just had my end of year review, and I was told, "Hey, you need, this is what you did well. This is all this." What people are forgetting, because I keep hearing this on all these different outlets, is, well, then they answer to their bosses. Well, they're forgetting that we're their bosses. Like they work for us, so they do have to answer to us. And the problem is you trust everybody in the chain between us and the people that are elected or that hired into those government jobs to do the job, but we haven't seen that. So the problem is now they're being held accountable to us, the people ultimately they work for. And it's like, we are their bosses. That's just how it shakes out. So when I hear that, it just aggravates me. It's like, well, yeah, they're being held accountable to their bosses, just like we are. The problem is we are their bosses.
So this is a great time between what you just said and a point Anthony's been making is like, so I guess maybe there has to be an eye for an eye, because there has to be a little bit of pain to remind people that you are not an unelected holier than thou class. Like you don't just get away with it, because time and time again, we see too many government officials of all walks. Again, your Department of Transportation, your school board, your law enforcement, your mayor, that they don't believe that. They don't, and you'll see, like, you work for us. I mean, think about the school board meetings. If they don't like what you're saying at a school board meeting, they shut your mic off. They have cops arrest you and escort you out. No,
and then you're not allowed back.
And what a shameful thing for any law enforcement officer to do. It's like, no, you can't arrest this person for holding you accountable and speaking their mind. Well, they can't, but they can't come to this meeting and talk. No, actually, this is an open public meeting. That's exactly what gets to happen, But so we see that. So I think Anthony is probably right on some level where we do need some of this, because there are too many people in the government world who don't think they work for we the people. They're like, well, I work for the county. Who is the county? The county is a geographical designator for designated for a geographical part of land. And it's not just because it's a parcel of land. It actually represents all the people who live within that geographic district. That's what it is. You work for those people. You don't work for the county. What does that mean? You work for the county administrator, and that's the only person you're accountable to, and then what? I guess you're not accountable to the mayor or the governor or the people, or, like, it's just asinine. But that's where we are, I think, boys and girls. So kind of taking it a little bit, we're at almost an hour, but adding a little bit more to it. I'm not sure how I am actually pretty sure. You can already see how it's being received. Will that snap some people out and snap them out of their fog and make them wake up and realize, like, oh, hang on a second, I'm an adult. And, that was really jacked up of me during the Corona time when I was like, I physically accosted somebody in a grocery store because they didn't have their mask on. You know,
Well,
how do I feel? How do you know, like, so that reciprocity can come back upon us, you know, that can be the mirror. How do you feel about that? How do you remedy? How do you rectify those actions with your mental process? You know, you'll hear a bunch of people say, well, we didn't know and we were all afraid. So you just give in to fear and beat up your fellow citizen, your neighbor, you get people fired and you're gleeful about it because they didn't go along and perpetuate your fear mongering. Is that what who we are as a people? Anthony, I don't know if you want to respond to that, either one of you boys, or if you want to go, but I think that's got to come back too, because we have people doing it. If you don't go along with this, whatever this thing is here in Minnesota, Derek Shelvin, police officer, you know, you even had people on the jury just coming around and saying, it's like, yeah, well, basically everybody and the judge and everybody is like, nope, there has to be a sacrifice, and it's going to be the cop. We're going to withhold evidence. We're not going to bring this up. And we're just going to make sure that, and I think one of you talked about jury nullification. We're just going to make sure that this guy goes to jail, period. You know, we're not going to talk about the property damage that was done. We're not going to talk about a mayor and a governor that just let people riot and loot. People were injured. People were killed. At least $50 million of damage was done. We're not going to talk about that. Or during Corona, oh, it's okay for those people to protest and not wear their mask. We won't do anything about them. But Murph is outside in his own yard with his dog, and he doesn't have a mask on. And so we're going to show up and arrest him right now.
I took it off just for this. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the type of stuff that was happening. So where do we go as a society? How do we heal? Is it reciprocity or is it something different? But these are major issues that as a species, and especially as Americans, we're going to have to deal with, and it's not going to be pretty. You can already see it happening right now. That's my diatribe. Bring it over to you, Anthony.
Yeah, I would say, it measured reciprocity, right? I mean, think about old school parents. Like, I remember I had old school parents where, you acted up in a store and either you got a whooping in the store or they made you wait until you got home and then you caught a whooping. But you learned not to do stupid things because you were going to get cracked. So the thing is that now these politicians and even people from all walks of life, they think that they could just get away with things because they're not held to account. And, like what I had said before, but I think Murph had missed, it's about holding the other side to account, just so that they understand the discomfort of having to live under onerous rules that they imposed. It's not so much to get an upper hand; it's more about discipline and letting them understand that, you know what, yeah, it sucks when you're on the receiving end of that, right? It's not so comfortable. So maybe now you understand that going forward, don't do things like that. I think if we did that, just as parents do the same thing with their kids and they punish their kids or they discipline their kids when they step out of line, it's absolutely important to do that even as adults, and to maintain the pressure on, for instance, our elected officials, and not get distracted by the bouncing ball, the new thing that's on the news that is there to distract us, which is, again, to Murph's point that he had brought up some time ago about how new things pop up in the news and everybody gets distracted and focuses only on the new thing, but forgets about the major things that happened previously that they were championing and that they were, shouting from the rooftops about. But then all of a sudden, this new thing came and they completely forgot. They completely forgot about, Epstein. They forgot about Diddy. They forgot about all these things. Or they forgot about major corruption. Or they forgot about certain communities not getting, storm relief and things like that. These are major things. But we allow ourselves to take the bait and fall into these ridiculous traps and be diverted and have all of our resources and all of our attention diverted to nonsense, when we should be sticking to the things that are very important, especially if they're things that long term can either make us a stronger nation or erode us. So it's very important for us to stay on subject and stay on that path, and to champion those things that are absolutely important, not get distracted by nonsense.
Hey, Murph said this earlier, and you're going back to it, I think it's all by design, man. Yeah, tinfoil hat time, whatever you want to call it.
Absolutely.
And all that social media, everything, Murph was talking about. It's so we don't stay on target, we don't stay on point, and we allow that other thing to show up. And Murph, I was just going to say, do you need to go inside because it's pretty dark? And okay,
is that all right? I can just turn on my headlamp as long as it's not too bad.
No, it looks good. Actually, it's kind of cool.
Okay, I'm sitting out here on my tailgate of the truck.
No, but you got the trees behind you and everything. It's dark. It's actually kind of cool.
Yeah.
You should actually just have a fire, and we should be having these conversations. That's where I wanted to go initially.
I should have done that next time. If you have me on again after not being really prepared today, I will do that, because I've got a hell of a fire from this tree just fell on my driveway the other day, and I've got it all piled up in the fire pit out back. I'm in my front driveway. I'm hanging out like this. My whole property looks like this, but so that's why it looks like a cool backdrop. But I wanted to hit up. Anthony said measured reciprocity. I think that's the key to it. The key to it is, don't make this next 4 years or where we're at now, or even if it's the next 8 years or 12, however long this side's in power, don't make the next X amount of time about getting even and I'll show you. Like, go after the things that need to be gone after. Don't be petty. Let other shit go and go after the main stuff that we can all agree on. Well, we're never all going to agree, but the majority of things to further our country. And I think that's the key to it. I think the key is just saying, hey, yeah, we're not going to keep doing the gotcha moments. Like, don't get me wrong. The Trump thing, I'm not going to sit here and bash Trump or promote Trump either way. But dude, I'm getting tired of the Elizabeth Warren Pocahontas thing. I'm tired of it. We all know she lied. We get it. But every time he gets up there, I'm like, bro, drop it.
Yeah, but hang on. But sorry to disagree, but this is where I would disagree. To our overall point, how does she or any other politician how are they ever going to learn? Because apparently she's not going to get voted out of office. Apparently all of her constituents are okay with it, but it's not. You lied. And truth be told, you lied on federal documents. Wait, why isn't she in trouble for that? Right. So what do we get? What's our next best thing? Public humility, right? Public shaming, calling that up every time. So what else are you going to do? Are we just going to forget the fact that she's a liar and that she lied on a federal form? And that, in politics, why would he ever let that go? She's a liar. Why would you ever let it go? Why would you not use that as part of your attack? Yeah, Elizabeth Warren says this. Yeah, she also claimed that she was Native American. What do you want to do? You can
do it like that, right? But we also, there's a time and place for it. I remember his first term. And I'm not going to sit here and, keep bashing anybody or one or the other, but the first term, he had the Navajo code talkers, and he was like, hey, we're here to honor these great men, right? For what they did and the things they did for their country, for our country. And then in the same breath said they're real Native Americans, unlike our Native American Pocahontas. I'm like, dude, that's not the time. These guys are here to be honored. They don't care about that. So again, there is a decorum involved. But it's like, that's not the time, man. Like, it's being petty on a certain level. And that's what I think we're doing overall with all government on both sides, all sides.
So I'll definitely give you that. I think he shouldn't.
That's what I'm talking about.
But it's the time and place. And because conversely, what just happened, again, it's not the real State of the Union, but, in his speech to the joint session of Congress, the Democrats showed because they did the same thing. Here's a young boy with brain cancer, and he was getting an honorary Secret Service. You can't clap for that. Like, what is wrong with you people, right? So you're right. I mean, but and not to, I guess, kind of going into a parental thing, but who started it, right?
Yeah. Well, we're never going to know who started it because it's gone so far back. I mean, who started slinging mud first? We don't know. We're all standing here covered in fucking mud.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
Yeah, true. But okay, well, hey, but that was a great point, right? And we all can have different opinions. You want to keep going on that because I kind of interrupted you saying, "Oh no, I disagree. I think he should keep going after." But you're right. It's the time and place. There's a time and place, and you don't do it when you're honoring, veterans of, your veterans, who did honestly such a badass thing during World War II. I mean, come on, let's just be honest. That's freaking badass. Don't fuck with the USA. I just dropped an F-bomb because we've got you have no idea what, everybody's like, what is this for? Are these Martians on there? You had no idea what was going on. That was badass shit right there.
Yeah. No, that's kind of where I was going with it. I was just saying, we need to focus, keep the eye on the prize, and yeah, we can have these gotcha moments for a while, but we need to eventually get away from that and just saying, hey, we're not here to just dismantle everything that's the other side or whatever. We need to move forward. And I'm not saying we need to bring everybody together because we're just never going to do that. It's not going to happen. There's certain people on all sides that don't want to be brought together. They want to create division and divisiveness. And we just need to, like I said, as a whole, as a country, we need to realize that, hey, we're not going to engage in certain bullshit and just go keep your eye on the prize, right? What do they? Damn it! I'm trying to think of the line from The Patriot where he talks about his mom, and she had the star that she wore, and something about keep north or something like that, or whatever it is, eye on the horizon type thing. That's what we need to do. But I don't know. I mean, right now it makes sense because we're still early on, so this is going to happen. We're going to have this kind of it's our turn now. We're going to have that, but eventually that needs to chill out and just go at. We're here to fix shit.
Yeah.
Well, so I'm going to bring this over to Anthony. And again, kind of disagreeing, but I'm sure we'll probably actually really agree on this, though, Murph, is like, I agree with you. At some point, we have to move past it, but not if laws have been broken. We don't move past it until we restore the rule of law, right? So if anybody's noticing, this rule of law is kind of a theme. I've brought this up in a bunch of different, CLS After Dark. If we have the rules for thee, but not for me, we will never. And Murph said, it's always going to be so difficult anyway. It's so difficult to bring so many people, even if you're all of the same, political, ethnic, special interest. You're human beings. You're not going to get everybody to agree 100% of the time. That's just, I guess that'd be mathematically impossible or statistically very unlikely. But we do need to, I think, to Anthony's point, we need to set that stage so we can get to where you said, Murphy, where we can then take a breath and start moving back past that, because we have reciprocal. It really is it is equal justice. It is fairness. It isn't media censorship. It isn't, mainstream media, Leslie Stahl, but sir, and all that just shenanigans and just because honestly, I just wish, well, you're here. I guess I'm rambling for a second, but I'm starting to see a lot more little shorts and stuff of people who claim to have been Democrats their whole life coming out and just saying I have no idea what's going on. And you see a lot of pundits talking about the Democrat Party is imploding. Well, kind of to Anthony's point, we're back to the very beginning. Well, I don't even know if we said this. You reap what you sow, and that's reciprocity, and that's, accountability. And that's the rule of law. If look at how many people started flapping their gums. Oh, good luck showing up at my house, for looking for illegals. And then Tom Homan comes out and says, I just took note of that. And maybe we will be at your house. And the next thing they're backpedaling and walking it back. I mean, I just heard Jasmine Crockett. I think it's Jasmine Crockett. She just was on live TV and she just made such a crazy statement. She said that people who enter the country illegally haven't broken any laws. And you're just looking around like, hang on a second. Was that you just said people who enter the country illegally haven't broken any laws. Well, what did you just say? I mean, so reciprocity, accountability, whoever voted Jasmine Crockett, dude, is that who you really want representing you? Because if that is the case, then that mentality will persist. And then to Anthony's point, and this is where I'll shut up, then no one has learned that the stove is hot and you shouldn't touch the stove. Anthony?
Yeah, I mean, looking at it from that perspective, I mean, without laws, you have chaos, right? So with chaos, you have disunity. Laws, when equally applied to everyone, maintain a certain semblance of order. So it's extremely important for people to feel as though they're going to be treated on the same level. So if the guy across the street decides that he's going to, let's say, go burn down someplace in protest, but he's with one organization, but then somebody else were to do something similar or vandalize something else, and one person's being treated severely under the law, and the other person is either getting a slap on the wrist or nothing happens. I mean, it breeds a certain level of contempt, especially when the reason why certain people aren't prosecuted is because of weird characteristics, right? We're like, oh, we can't go after that one. Why? Well, because they're this from this ethnic group, or oh, we can't apply the law to that person. Why? Well, because they're affiliated with some sort of an organization, and we don't want to get involved. We don't want to get on the bad side of that organization. You can't govern that way, because then there's no semblance of fairness whatsoever, and then it stokes animosity between people. It makes them clash. It makes them get to the point where they start having animus toward one another, and they just kind of go, you know what, I can't stand this, because every time somebody that's X, Y, or Z does this, does certain things, they get away with it. But if I do something, then, they throw the book at me. Well, that's going to continue to breed that chaos and disunity. And it's probably by design. It looks as though, how they were doing things, even with regard to a lot of the illegals that were in the country that are committing crimes, even if they're minor crimes. And I'm not talking about just the fact that they're in here illegally. I'm talking about when they actually commit crimes while they're here illegally, that, especially in my state, they get into some sort of a vehicular issue. They don't get in trouble for it. They get to walk. But now the other person that was a victim of this, they're kind of stuck, because they've got to pay for all the repairs, whatever hospital bills they've got, and this other person just gets to walk scot-free. They don't have insurance. They don't, they have a driver's license, but they're not a citizen. So guess what? The cops just let them go. Or what was going on in, I think it was in Ohio, where you had people that did not have driver's licenses, and they're driving around in cars, running over kids, and because they don't know how to drive, and they're getting away with it. Why? Well, I'm illegal, so, it's okay. No, you have to hold everybody accountable. I don't care what somebody's immigration status is. I don't care, what their religious affiliation, what their ethnicity is. None of that crap matters. What does matter is, if you do something wrong, you should be held to account, and that's it. It doesn't need to be any more nuanced than that. It's, if you do something that's wrong, you need to be held to account, and stop, making excuses about, oh, well, they're only really coming after me because of, I'm this protected class or that protected class. It's nonsense. You broke a law. You did something either ridiculous or egregious, so that's why you're actually being prosecuted. It has nothing to do with anything else. But unfortunately, we live in a society where they don't want to do that. They'd much rather split us up, go after some people, leave other people alone, and it just really does stoke animosity between people.
Murph, why do you think that is happening? Or do you think that's what's going on in our country? And if so, why?
I think it is. I think we've gone too long with giving people protected statuses. I mean, all statuses. I mean, you could do that on, again, both sides. And I'm not running for office here. I know I keep saying both sides, but it is apparent to me on all sides that we do these kind of things. But you'll hear people say all day long, like, well, don't go after them. Like Anthony was saying, don't go after them because of this, or we don't want to go up against them because they have this lobby behind them. And it's like, dude, you have to. At some point, it becomes the who watches the watchman thing. You know, it's like everybody's got to be held accountable. Look at what is it? The Pentagon that's never passed an audit. And we're just like, okay, that's cool. But meanwhile, if you screw up your taxes, we're coming down on your ass.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, dude, that's not how it works. I mean, how can the people trust their government or anybody like that if their government is constantly being found in error and nobody holds them accountable?
Well, and so that has to be the reciprocity. We've had a
Right.
media that has been silent for so long because, and again, the proof is all out there. This channel, what we do, I'm not bringing the receipts, so to speak, because they're all over out there. You can find them yourself. Like, 39 or 40 some Democrats just tweeted almost verbatim the same tweet the other day. It's the same messaging. So something's going on there. And then kind of to another point, but along the same things, the media, and look, everybody wants to talk about, how evil rich people are, or, you have to have businesses, you have to have this. But if we don't treat things and have an open society, we'll get what we just saw in Texas, where the American Heart Association had a representative go down there for a hearing because they want to argue against, because Texas, whether I can't remember if this was for the state or just for a county or a part of Texas, but they don't want people to use their SNAP, their assistance cards. They don't want them to be able to use it for, cigarettes, sugar, like soda, cookies, that kind of stuff. And the American Heart Association came down and lobbied against that. And then it comes to find out is because the American Heart Association is getting all kinds of money from Pepsi and all these other people. And then they're now trying, like, hang on a second. It's the same thing back during Corona. Like, oh, you got the science. What do you mean? And now you hear people, like some of the truth is finally coming up, but the media isn't talking about it, isn't sharing it. They're still trying to repress it because they don't want that to come out. Oh yeah, we were getting kickbacks, and oh yeah, and NH was doing this, and oh yeah, well, here's a bunch of guys like, yeah, well, we just kind of made that up. We didn't really know. And like, no, then expose that, then and point that out so people can make more informed decisions. And again, how can you listen to somebody tell you about what you should or shouldn't do from a health perspective when they're all just on the dole? They're all just getting money. That needs to be exposed, and there has to be a reciprocity. Like, the American Heart Association, if you're out there lobbying on behest of big companies, or if you're a politician or you're whatever, media, and big pharma money is so important that you just shill for them, there has to be some type of consequence. There has to be some reciprocity. You did this. You knowingly did this, sold your soul out, lied to the American people, probably have caused a lot of deaths, a lot of injuries, and we're just going to pretend it didn't happen? I don't think so. I can't see it. Okay, on that note, boys, I'm trying to get these shorter, so let's start thinking about wrapping it up. And I'm not going to lie, I'm still kind of fighting off a cold or some weird crap, and whatever. I'm getting old is what it probably boils down to, and I probably need to take a vacation, but let me just kind of make one last statement and then throw it over to you guys for wherever you want to go. But my only point here is truth and justice and fairness, however you want to frame that. And I'm using the term reciprocity, do unto others what, as you would have them. But in this case, it isn't as I would rather you did to me, but it's like, no, this is what you did. So should we be applying that those same rules as Anthony said? You guys made the new rules. All right, new rules. This is how you guys say we should do it. So this is what we're going to do. Or, how do you apply that reciprocity? Well, I guess this is reciprocity. Hey, if you used to love Elon Musk, you don't love him, leave him, electric cars, all that was like cool. Then suddenly Elon Musk buys X, roots out all the evil and all the censorship that was taking place there, and still to some extent is taking place there. Now he's been appointed by a duly elected president. That's how cabinet positions that. And now suddenly this is a weird thing. It's been, since day one of, which we're coming up on our 250th, boys and girls. But, this has been going on for forever. And suddenly this is a weird issue, but it's because it's going to expose the graft and corruption and the lies that your side that has been promulgating. Well, how do we resolve that, right? We've talked about it, but this is still a big question. I think every individual is going to have to figure out for themselves. What do we do? You know, look, I can tell you right now, I'm starting, I hate Instagram. Instagram, it just sucks, but I'm just starting a new little thing. I'm going to post every day on Instagram and Twitter, X, excuse me, the countdown, how many days you've been in office, and we're still waiting on the Epstein files.
Yep.
Plain and simple. You know, like, great. Yeah. People have entered the country illegally, and, you know, that is a crime and we need to address it. But is that really the main focus? I mean, I get it. From a tactical perspective, you're like, well, no, this will draw attention to this issue and highlight it so we can resolve it. Well, okay. Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, Vice President Vance, President Trump. Where are those files? I don't care who's on it. I don't care if it shows that Israel was behind it. I don't give a shit at all. Rip that Band-Aid off. Otherwise, we're never going to move forward. Well, there will always, just like Corona, there needs to be truth, and that's the reciprocity. These guys lied, concealed, distorted, censored. I'm not saying doing that. I'm saying using the rule of law and applying it equally to everybody and going after these big ticket items. Yeah, I know you're getting some wins under your belt. I get it, you know, and that's still a worthy thing. It still has to happen. But if we really want to start seeing some national healing and bringing back a rule of law, it's got to start up there. And the answer to that isn't what the left celebrates, is a lone gunman going and killing some healthcare, official. That you just murdered a man. What the hell? What was that? That was murder. And he's like suddenly a hero because, you know, evil healthcare. Man, do you guys even understand how that whole thing works and why you would even call healthcare evil? I mean, so that's my kind of final comment here, is like each and every one of us is going to have to really figure out how we're going to approach this, what we're going to do, what matters to us. Look, and a lot of people are just going to be, I don't care, and I'm too busy and I don't have time to think about it. That's, in my opinion, that's exactly what evil is banking on. That's why we have this shit going on right now, because we'll be too worried about, oh, what did this movie star or no, as opposed to, hey, what are my actual rights? And am I actually afforded those rights anymore? Is the Constitution really still a thing? Or is it just like a suggestion on a piece of paper, you know, sandwiched between a bunch of bomb-proof glass nowadays? All right, that's my comment right there for everybody. Let me bring it over to our guests to start kind of wrapping it up. I don't know who wants to go first, but what are you guys' final thoughts? Where do you want to go? Go anywhere you want, or address what I said.
Well, getting to the health thing, I mean, there's certain things that I'm actually very disappointed with regard to, RFK Jr., and that I'm not really seeing any movement. Like we were all told that, oh, we're going to start having some changes with regard to, fluoride in the water, and then, with regard to food ingredients and all this other stuff. I mean, even in with regard to that, we should be holding this new guard accountable as well, because you told us you were going to do all these things. You said you were going to make sure that we were going to be a healthier society. Well, what's going on with that? Pam Bondi, what are you doing with regard to, exposing a lot of the corruption and graft that's going on? When are you going to reveal the people that are preying on children? When are those people going to be held accountable? It's getting tiresome listening to these people grandstand and give us these empty promises about what they're going to do, and we're gonna make some changes and things aren't going to be the same. Well, so far they've been the same. You should have had a game plan walking into that office as to what you're going to do. You should have had a playbook as to how you're going to execute certain things, but they didn't. They didn't. What have they done?
Or maybe, well, in all fairness, maybe they did, but it wasn't prioritized on what you and I, because I agree with you. And in all fairness, somebody say, well, government, the wheels of justice don't move that fast. I get that argument, but my counter argument is you're in charge now. And yes, it can. I mean, you're in charge. You can go and shut the doors and say no one leaves until it's the end of your shift. No one touches their keyboard. and I want all these files, and, IT guy, get your ass over here, and I want access to all this, and I want to know who leaked it. We hear about all this stuff, but to your point, okay, we hear that there's been some leakers, and I get it. You're the argument, the counter argument, Anthony, and that's what I'm trying to do, a little devil's advocate, and I'll turn it back to you. The counter argument is like, it takes time to, to make your case, to get your evidence, do it in a proper legal fashion, now when it comes to declassification, it doesn't. Sure doesn't. That's the president's discretion right then and there, period. No,
Yeah.
I just wanted to throw that out there. So maybe, like, okay, we haven't seen who leaked the information on the ICE raids or whatever, because they need to, like, take their time and make sure they do it right.
I get that. I get that. To me, that's not a top priority. These other things are top priority to me. I want to make sure that I could drink water without having some sort of a weird issue with my brain in the future because of all the fluoride that they put in the water. I want to be able to breathe fresh air when I go outside. I want to be able to eat food that are made by the same manufacturers we have here, but they make a different version for the UK that doesn't have a ton of chemicals in it, or that they make for Canada that doesn't have a ton of chemicals, but for us, they just load it up, just put every chemical you can in there, so that we end up getting sick, and then we've got to be on pharmaceuticals as we get older. I don't want to live that kind of a life. I don't want to live that kind of a life. I want to have a nice, healthy lifestyle, and I want to, in my older years, enjoy myself. I don't want to be dependent upon medication, because once you start on medication, you're going to have to take other medication to mitigate the effects of the first few medications that you were taking.
I'm sorry. Yeah. I just, we almost might need to do an episode. Let us know in the chat, or if you watch on demand, leave a comment just on the pharmaceutical, because RFK Jr., like, so I already see, small snippets. A town here is banning fluoride. This group over here is going to get rid of, red number 5, but it's super slow. Right. And then
I think that American empowered, right?
Yeah. And then that American Health Association thing coming and petitioning to make sure people can still consume lots of sugar. Well, that goes into what you just said. It's the pharmaceuticals, it's the kickbacks, it's the grift, it's the whole 9 yards. And our medical institutions, and our government, our political, all these institutions are being corrupted by this. And that's the real thing that I think the left should be focused on. I'd be on their side all day long if they focus on that. That is the problem with big business and, rich corporations. But that's just it. It's evil, and evil knows how to play us like the suckers that we are. And we're going to go along with it just as long as I get my free shit. I don't care if it's full of poisonous chemicals or whatever. I got my free stuff. Sorry, Anthony. I just
no, it's fine.
Again, I'm going through my own shit with the VA and all this, how they deal with it. It's like, man, oh man, don't even want to. Do you want to add to that, or we're going to come down to Murph then?
Yeah, part of that accountability has to be, not everything is about just writing your Congress people about issues that you've got. We can write RFK Jr., we could write Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, all these people, and put pressure on them and say, hey, you know what? You promised us X, Y, and Z. We want it. Stop giving us empty promises. Enough's enough. You've been telling us for the better part of a year, you've got a grand plan. Well, let's see this grand plan. I want to see results. I'm sick and tired of just people giving us lip service constantly. I want to see things happen.
And to add to and so maybe to give some concrete examples, because I have a whole bunch of them. We're not going to go through them all right here, but just to Anthony's point, why don't we know about the January 6th bomber? Why don't we know why all of those, the January 6th committee, why did they destroy all their evidence? Why don't we know who that bomber was? Why did the Secret Service, lose the records? And like, what about the two attempted assassinations on Trump? One guy, there's a court case going against, the other guy's dead. Yeah. Why don't we have all of that information? There's a new Secret Service head. There's a new FBI director of the FBI. again, to Anthony's point, to me, I would have come in day one and we would have been, and that's what we would have been talking about. And then, and all that information would have been exposed, and we would have been finding out who in the FBI was withholding that information. The Epstein files, dude, it's classified as national security bullshit. You're protecting the names of some big, powerful people who are sick. And we don't even, honestly, maybe that's what it is, boys. It's like, because if we all knew the real truth and that it was really some satanic death cult, like maybe that'd be too much, or, it is the lizard people or something like that. No, I actually say, no, we need to know that too, whatever it is, it's got to be. So I agree with you on that. That's been my big thing. It's like, you guys said this, it's 53 days in, and we're not anywhere near closer to the Epstein files or the January 6th bomber or the attempted assassinations on Trump, Corona. The list is long, and it's not, and it's more important than, I hate to say it, somebody entering our country illegally is important. This other shit is more important than that right now. We can get to that stuff and deal with that, as we're doing this. That's my kind of response to that.
Yeah, destroying evidence, you're absolutely 100% guilty or complicit. I don't care if it's that committee. I don't care if it's Hillary. I don't care who it is. If you're destroying evidence, you are guilty.
Why is the acting director of USAID on Tuesday? Why was her memo or her instructions to everybody to start, look, and I don't know, but it's like, start destroying everything, burn bags, hard drives, like, whoa, hang on, what? How is that person right now not held up, like literally drug in front of a court of law, like immediately fired, put in cuffs, and like, and taken to court? Like, what you're destroying evidence, and we're just gonna just talk about it like it's a news cycle thing? Bullshit, man. What the hell? Murph, what do you think? Are we just off our rockers over here? You're kind of like the voice of reason.
I don't know, man. If I'm the voice of reason, we're in the wrong fucking room. I just always thought that I mean, I don't know. The problem is it's too big for me to get a scope on everything. And part of it is because I'm not in tune with everything. Like, you guys are in tune with a lot of stuff. That whole American Heart Association thing, I didn't even know about it. But part of me, the cynical part of me goes, good, let them do it. Pump them full of sugar, get them out of the system, because then they're going to die early and they're out. But then part of it's like, well, I'm paying for that shit. And there's kids involved, because, if people are using those benefits, they're feeding it to their kids. They're just keeping that generation going. I don't want to see kids suffer. But it's like, man, it's like, if there was a whole line of people just committing suicide over there, and you said, we need to stop people from committing suicide. No, get them out of the gene pool. I want them gone.
Well, hang on, but they're committing suicide on your tax dollars. That's where it's wrong.
And I'll even help fund it if it gets certain people out of the system. Absolutely, go, bro. See ya. But the problem is, it's going to affect kids, because that stuff is going to come. A lot of people, I don't know. I think you're talking about SNAP benefits, right? I don't know anything about that stuff, but if it's family stuff, then kids are involved. You don't want to see kids getting drugged down that and getting perpetuated into the system, and then all of a sudden they're indoctrinated. You don't want to see that. Man, I don't know. It's a lot. It's a lot to take in, and it's more than I have the bandwidth to try to fix. But we can only, it all comes down to grassroots. You can only fix what you can fix around you and hope it has a ripple effect. The food stuff we talk about. Yeah, I don't want fluoride in my water either. I want a well. There's things I want. I mean, food. If better food was easier to get for people, if we had home gardens all across the country, and community gardens are great, and then I understand there's food deserts and stuff. I know it's not a one size fits all fix for anybody, but we just got to do what we can where we can for the people we can benefit.
Well, okay, so how and does that mean then holding people accountable? How do we do that? Like, what's the game plan? How do we get there?
I mean, I don't know. That's a loaded one too, because how do you do that? I mean, again, you're never going to make everybody happy with how you hold people accountable. You're going to get somebody, and then somebody's going to say, well, what about this guy over here? He's still getting away with it. Well, look, man, we just spent all kind of effort trying to get this asshole. Now we got to chase down this other asshole. I mean, I don't know. It's a giant topic, and I don't know how to wrap my head around it all.
But if we don't start someplace, look, there's a shithouse lawyer out there right now who's looking at all these people who haven't been prosecuted for clear violations of the law. And if they're representing a client who did even something within that same category, I mean, I would just say, well, Your Honor, well, look, what was my client supposed to assume? Here's all these people. They're on tape and video breaking the law, or saying or boasting about it. And not a single one of them is up on charges or on trial or in jail. So how can you hold that same? If you're not going to apply the standard to them, how are you applying it to my guy? Are you discriminating against my guy because he's not a politician or an athlete or, a social media or a media person? Oh, my guy's just a poor, local construction worker. Oh, so he gets to go to jail, but the other people who we can clear, it'd be so easy to come into court and play that evidence, just like Here they are in their own words saying it. So how can you hold my guy accountable and not these guys?
Sure. In a perfect world, right? In a perfect world, we would have a magic wand and we would wave it, and all the people that are guilty of something are punished. I mean, I know I would use mine immediately on pedophiles and people that don't use their turn signals. And I'd go back in time and I would kill Hitler, and then I'd kill the son of a bitch that proposed daylight savings time. All right, maybe in that order.
I'm having a hard time arguing with your lot because I like all those ideas right there, and that would be reciprocity as well.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a tough one to follow up. I almost feel like I want to end it on that right there, because if I could go in and clip that out, that would be the final comment, especially for my animus towards my hatred for daylight savings.
I just wanted to go one way or another. I don't even care. I don't care if it's more time on the back end, front end, light. I don't care. I just want it to stop. Just go one way and be done.
I would prefer that if we did that, we just stick with the real time. We're in fake time right now. Just keep everything real. Just why live in a fake universe, right? That's that's fluoride. That's social distancing. See what I'm saying? That's all that stuff is fake. Let's not do fake shit anymore, right? Let's just kind of get back to being real. That's my comment. All right. On that note, boys, that was a good one. That was a great. Let me come back over to Anthony and then back down to Murph for any final comments. And then we're going to wrap it up a little early, which I'm very excited about because I need a little bit of rest tonight. So I'm still recovering. So learn me something.
Yeah. I mean, I would just urge everybody to just stay focused on the prize, stay focused on those things that you feel are absolutely essential. And if need be, write letters to those people that are in charge that are supposed to be taking care of those particular issues, those people that are supposed to be uncovering the corruption and or illegalities that are going on. So, as citizens in whatever country you are, hold your electeds accountable, hold your government accountable. And, any of those people that are within the government that are in positions of power, write those people, if especially if they're the ones that have direct input and or influence over those important issues. Write those people, get other people to write them as well, and just continue to put the pressure to try to actually attain those goals.
My only way to add to that, bringing it back over to Murph, is, and don't be afraid about being vocal. I mean, and just start calling it out. Like, hey, you're not, you don't get to preach to me. You lied about this, or you're embezzling this, or, again, going back to Crenshaw, you're on record, you're on video. You admitted it in an interview that you use your position for personal gain. So go F yourself, man. You got no grounds to talk about things. And you probably voted for daylight savings, son of a beep. All right, Murph. Finals.
Ultimate betrayal.
Seriously.
No, that's all I got, man. I'm gonna end it on the note I did earlier, because otherwise I'll just leave it at that.
Hey, man, that you just sank a 3-point. Well, here, somebody just said it in the chat. That was the mic drop to the heavens. What your final. So yeah, you just at the buzzer, half court, all net. That was Murph there. All right. Hey, boys and girls, again, wrapping it up a little bit early. I'm still fighting, I don't know, a cold or some crap. So, kind of, and I want to get these under 2 hours going forward. We love the Joe Rogan version, doing 3-4 hour podcasts. But truth is, I'm just getting way too old for that shit, So, and I think it's a little bit better if we just keep it a little bit shorter. So, really appreciate everybody being here. Appreciate everybody in the chat. Hats off to our guests, Anthony, aka Learn Me Something, and Murph. Really appreciate those guys taking the time away from, they're just their day to spend it here and share their comments with you. And thanks to you guys for sharing your comments in the chat. Anthony likes to say, so I'm just going to steal his thunder here. Hey, once the video's done, just go give it a like, give it a comment. Like, because what we didn't really talk about too much is the censorship is real. And, you know, everybody hears, you know, and I'm not a content creator. I'm a small business. This is fun to me, right? And it's a way to connect and communicate and talk with other real human beings about real human issues. But it never is going to do anything if, because YouTube doesn't like it and Instagram doesn't like it. And I just found out Twitter didn't like me, you know, diming out, you know, I guess I can't tag Elon Musk in the, you know, come on, dude, 53 days, man, where is it? So, you know, but no, the censorship is real. So help us. And that's a, you know, back to Anthony's point. That's just one more small thing that you can do. And whoever it is, and I'll just end it on this. You don't have to do it. I'm beseeching you. I'm asking you. And I'll just give you an example. Here's what I do. If I'm watching a video and I don't like it, I just move on past it to the next video. If I watch a video and I like it, I hit the like button. If I watch a video and I really like it, I make a comment. That's how I do it, right? So thanks for watching. Really appreciate it.
And if you really enjoy the video, share the video with other people that you know.
Yeah, there's that. Subscribe and all that kind of crap. You know, there's people I'm subscribed to who I get unsubscribed. I don't get any notifications. So again, because they talk about a little bit of spicy content, and that's what happens because the powers to be want us to all to be separated, to be divided, to be ignorant, because that's the way. There will not be any reciprocity. It'll be rules for thee, but not for me, and that's what's going on, in my humble opinion, in this world. And it's going to be a rough ride. It's not going to be easy. Just, you know, if you voted for Trump and you think your side won, you know, get ready, boys. I mean, there's still another side that's still willing to throw Molotov cocktails and all kinds of stuff. And to our point, and there's people who've done that and they haven't suffered any consequences, you know, slap on the wrist here, slap on the wrist there. So just be, you know, be on your toes and stay frosty. We're not out of this by any stretch of the imagination. That's all I got. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate it. We'll see you have a great upcoming weekend. And we'll see you next week with our good friend Gimli. We're going to be talking about the Sherpa belt and the Y harness. And then next week, back here with, I'm sorry, one last plug. He's a great man. He's been on here as a guest before. He really makes a contribution. Redbeard, aka Czar Baroda. His channel, Sentinels of Liberty. That's this Saturday at 1700 Central Daylight Time. We've shown it in some other previous videos, or just go back into the comments and you'll find them. And we'll be over there on Saturday. Hope to see you guys there. Till then, you know the deal. If you got any questions, reach out. We'll do the best we can. Hope you enjoyed it. Just like the drug, you don't know if it's going to last 2 hours or 4 hours or go for all day. So, but thank you for joining us on another episode of CLS After Dark, and we'll see you next time. All right, everybody. Gene, get them going. All right. Murph showed. Hang on. We got one request before we do it.
What's that?
Well, first off, Husky Bunch said Semper Fi, Murph. Great show.
Semper
but
Fi.
Then Gene is asking if you can show the Poochie.
Stand by. She just ran off for a disc. She's coming. Blue, come here. I just had her up here like a damn catfish. I was holding her up.
Yeah. So you got a request from the audience. Let's see the Poochie.
Bluebell, come here. Come here. She's looking at me like I'm going to beat her or something, which I've never done yet. Come here. Come here. Come here. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Oh, there we go. I don't know if you can see her. It's dark. She's a black German Shepherd. I don't know if I'm getting her. There we go. She's like, no. She's done, man. She's done.
Good enough. Well, you have fun, Murph. Really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah,
what's your dog's name? What's her name?
Blue.
What is it?
I named her Blue after the Velociraptor in Jurassic Park.
Oh, I got
Because she's like real smart. She pays attention to everything, and she's bitey as hell.
All right, boys and girls, we'll see you on the next Cialis. We're starting a Minnesota goodbye at the goodbye. So let's just end it right there. All right, we'll see you guys. Yeah, have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday over on the gear side, and then we'll see you next Thursday on another Cialis. All right, everybody, be good. Have a good week.
Good talking to you guys.
Hey, you know, Anthony, you might have to end it because I'm still getting you're going to have to end it, my good man.
All right. Have a great night, everyone.
All right. See ya.